did a lot of personal development in me. Good to see you, Damian. So Boniface, welcome. Boniface is a great guy. He's a teacher teaching. The other day I joined their event, which is more or less a graduation. He teaches leadership, talks about leadership, and very passionate about development of men, being a man or authentic man, something like that. He's an author, he's a family man, and this is somebody I've known for a good number of years in this very industry. And I like his passion, his articulation, and we are honored to have him today to share with us some nuggets that will be able to at least propel us the next step. And you know, in the School of Personal Development, there is no graduation. People don't reach graduation that now I have a certificate, that is it. No, we keep learning every day, every day. It's the same reason we go to church every other time. We don't say we've graduated, we've learned enough. We don't say we've read the Bible enough. So we are happy to have you, Boniface, and welcome. Let us, we will know more about you as you speak to us, and then we can move on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. It's a great Monday to be on this platform. Thank you for the good work you're doing. I think Power Monday needs to be listened to by everyone, because Monday mornings are not very good times for many people. A lot of people look forward to weekends. They don't look forward to Mondays. So I think this is a wonderful platform to begin to challenge people, inspire them, and just help them to be in the mind so that they can face the week with power, as the word rightly suggests. So once again, it's a very great honor for me to be here this morning. And I don't know whether you want me to start right away or how you want us to go about this. Maybe you can just guide me on that.
You can start maybe by telling the participants about yourself briefly, yes. Then you can take us through the meat that you prepared for us. Okay. And then thereafter, people will be contributing and asking questions. That's the way we usually do it. We have up to 8:15, so you will budget with your time. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Once again, it's a great honor to be here this morning. So maybe introductions first. Boniface Nyoike is my good name. I'm an author, I'm a father, I'm a husband, and above all, I'm passionate about authenticity. My three passions are inspiring men, enriching relationships, and equipping leaders. That's what I'm passionate about. And so I want to believe that you're ready to jump on this bandwagon, because I have some few nuggets to share with us that I believe are going to inspire us and challenge us and motivate us to become the best leaders we can be. Now, I know many times when we hear the term leadership, there are many things that come into mind. You hear of leadership. There are people who think positions. There are people who think titles. There are people who think different things come to different people when they think about leadership. Now, what I want to indulge you in for the next few minutes that we have is on this incredible subject that we call intentional leadership. Intentional leadership. Now, I want to begin by asking you a question. What comes to your mind? And maybe you can chat this on your platform there so that I can see what your thoughts are. What comes into your mind when you hear the word intentional? When you hear the word intentional, because the power of leadership is in understanding words and what those words mean to us. So when you hear the word leadership intentionality or intentional, what comes into your mind? Let me just see your responses on chat so that we can be together before I share some nuggets that I think are going to be impactful for us. What comes into your mind when you hear the word intentional? Intentional. Let me just hear one or two thoughts on chat if you can, so that we can be together. All right. I can see. Wow. All right. Not accidental. All right. Thank you for that. not accidental. When you're intentional, then you don't allow your leadership to be accidental. It is deliberate. Anybody else? Maybe one or two guys are giving me your response. Being deliberate. Thank you, Damian. Being deliberate. Yeah, that's absolutely true. When you are intentional, you are deliberate. Okay. Planned. Thank you, Liz. Planned, that you don't hope things will happen, you work to make things happen. One more, and then we dive in. One more response. What comes into your mind when you hear the word intentional? Or what does it mean to be an intentional person? Anybody else? One more person, and then we will dive in. Accidental, we've had, being deliberate, and then being planned. Okay. Anybody else? Purposeful, self-driven. Thank you, Stella. Purposeful. Yes, that is also about being deliberate. And Simeon also says being self-driven. All right. So let me share my slide here. And I have a few slides to share with you. Then we can begin to together see what this is all about. So when we talk about intentional leadership, and I'm going to take about 30 minutes to share and then just listening to your responses. When we talk about intentional leadership, we are basically talking about being distinguished as a leader by being deliberate. Now, it's very interesting that when you become deliberate as a leader and you become purposeful, like we've said, and you become intentional, then you begin to position yourself to become a distinguished leader. Any leader that wants to move from common to extraordinary must move from being casual to being deliberate. Now, think about the leaders that we know that have impacted our world. Think about Mother Teresa, for example. What comes into your mind when you think about Mother Teresa? When you think about Mother Teresa, you're thinking about a lady that was deliberate about alleviating suffering among the dying. And you see that in her passion, you see that in her disposition as a leader. In other words, every day there was a plan, there was an intention, there was a deliberateness about her going out and making an impact in that area. So what are we saying then? That the leader that has a position but is not intentional will end up being irrelevant. The fastest way to become irrelevant as a leader is to have a position and not have intentionality. When you stop being deliberate, and I'm reminded of the amazing Wangari Maathai, one of our own, and you see that this lady did not necessarily have a great position, but what was she deliberate about? She was deliberate about environmental conservation. Now, when you become deliberate, you automatically prove leadership. And this is what I want you to understand as we go on, that it is impossible to become a leader when you're not deliberate. In fact, what you need to become a leader is not a position, it is not a title, it is not recognition. You simply need to be deliberate. Leadership begins where intentionality starts, and when you stop being intentional, you begin to become irrelevant. I am sure you know of leaders, bosses at workplaces, leaders even in the church space, who at one point were very powerful, very passionate, but somewhere down the line, they began to become irrelevant. Why did they begin to become irrelevant? They stopped being deliberate. So what do we mean when we talk about intentional leadership? There are 4 words that for me define who an intentional leader is. And number 1 is that if you're an intentional leader, you are passionate. So my first question to you today is, what are you passionate about? Because you cannot divorce intentional leadership from passion, because passion is that inner drive that determines what you do, and you do it whether you're recognized for it or not, whether you're paid or not, whether you are awarded for it or not. When you're passionate, you don't need external motivation, because there is an inner drive that is driving you. So what are we saying? An intentional leader is passionate. Why was Nelson Mandela willing to be imprisoned for a whole 26 years fighting for the freedom of his people? It was more than recognition. It was a passion on the inside of him. Now, when you're in an intentional leader, then you tap into your passion. You tap into that thing that gives you drive, that thing that makes you come alive. Give you an example with myself. Anytime you mention authenticity, I come alive. I feel like this is what I was born to do. I am very intentional about it because I am passionate about it. Now, the fact of the matter is this, and I want you to understand this as we go on. When you stop being passionate, you will not sustain intentionality for long. In other words, what undergirds an intentional leader is the passion in their heart, not the position in their life, the passion in their heart. Number two, the intentional leader is not just passionate, but they move from being passionate to being deliberate. In other words, they give their passion a focus. When you don't have a focus as a person, you will not be deliberate as a leader. And this is what I want to challenge you to think about. What do you need to give as a focus for your passion so that you can stop scattering your energies and being a victim of what I call the octopus syndrome? I know most of us know the octopus. It has so many arms, but it does not achieve much because you may have a lot of energy, but when your energy is not directed towards a deliberate end, then you become a person that is erratic, accidental, and not intentional. So what do you need to be deliberate about? Okay, so we are saying number one is passion. Number two, you're deliberate. Number three, the intentional leader is strategic. In other words, you think about the best way of achieving results. Results are not achieved by desire. They are achieved by strategy. And a lot of us fail to become intentional leaders because we do not have strength of strategy. We do not invest thinking in what it is that we are doing. And so we end up not being intentional about it, because if you're going to be intentional, you begin by being passionate, you move to being deliberate, and then you move to being strategic. Are you strategic as a leader? Are you strategic in how you live your life? Are you strategic in how you position yourself for your career? Because where there are no strategies, tragedies will rule. Let me repeat that again, because that's an important thought. Where there are no strategies, tragedies take over. What are we saying? A deliberate leader is passionate. A deliberate leader is, an intentional leader is passionate. An intentional leader is deliberate. They are strategic. And then number four, they are proactive. And these are the four things that define an intentional leader. If we are going to look at you and say you are an intentional leader, we will not look at the position you hold. We will not look at your popularity. We will not look at your title. We will not even look at how many people follow you on social media. We will look at how passionate are you, how deliberate are you, how strategic are you, and then number four, how proactive are you? What does it mean to be proactive? You don't wait for things to happen. You make them happen. You don't wait for happiness to happen to you. You activate the activities that generate joy and enthusiasm in you. You don't wait to be encouraged by people to do what you need to do. You become proactive about it. Now, these are just the fundamentals of being an intentional leader. But let's just jump in and look at what is in it for you if you become intentional, or what do you lose when you fail to become intentional about your life as a person, about your life as a leader. Now, the first thing that suffers when you're not intentional is that you lose momentum. And how many of us like losing momentum? One of the most difficult things to gain in life is momentum. And one of the most easiest things to lose in life is momentum. Let me tell you something. When you lose your momentum in life, your journey to irrelevance has begun. I was reading a story about the Kodak, you know, those guys that used to manufacture those old cameras where you would take photos and then have a negative come out and then take it to the studio and they would print the photos for you. And I remember reading that story and how these guys failed to be intentional and they failed to pivot when they needed to move to the next level of innovation. They discovered that the cameras were moving from, you know, the old cameras to phones, and they refused to make that adjustment. And guess what? When they lost that momentum, they were kicked out of business. They were almost rendered irrelevant. How many times do you hear of a person going to a shop to buy a camera versus when you hear somebody going to a shop to buy a phone? It is because intentionality determines your momentum. Now, let me tell you something. If you don't become intentional, you will lose momentum. And by the way, when you lose momentum, you lose money. People who easily succumb to poverty are people who are not able to sustain momentum in doing something. They are erratic. They are on this thing today. They're on this other thing today. They are on the other thing today. They are not deliberate. They are not strategic. So when you lose intentionality, you lose momentum. You lose motion in life. You get stuck in the past and you stop moving towards your future and your destiny. Number two thing that pays off when you become intentional is that intentionality activates multiplication. Now, one of the things that you want to multiply as a person, as an individual, is your influence. To multiply your influence, you must be intentional. And one of the things intentionality brings into your life is multiplication of your influence, multiplication of your results, multiplication of your power to deliver as a leader. Show me a leader that is multiplying in their growth, that is multiplying in their greatness, and I will show you an intentional leader. One of the people that I follow a lot, especially in leadership circles, is one leader called John Maxwell. And one of the reasons why John Maxwell has been able to multiply his influence as a leader and as a trainer of leaders is because he has been intentional about creating value for people. How do you become intentional? You become intentional by thinking about how can I do what I'm doing at a higher level, at a greater level, at a faster rate. Intentionality activates multiplication. By the way, everything you are intentional about, you will multiply in. And anything you're not intentional about, you will lose. People ask me many times, how have you been able to multiply your ability to become a communicator, your ability to become an author, your ability to become a speaker, your ability to become a motivator? It is because I have been intentional about it. I am always reading, I am always studying, I am always growing myself. And because I am intentionally growing myself, the multiplication of my impact is endless, literally. All right. Intentionality determines your momentum. Intentionality activates multiplication. And thirdly, intentionality maximizes your mission. What is your mission in life? The only way to maximize your mission is to become intentional. Think about leaders that have been able to maximize their mission. I think about somebody like the great Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King stood up and he said, I look for the day when people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but they will be judged by the content of their character. And he became intentional about it, talking about it every day, going on the media about it every day. He was even willing to die for it. And what ended up happening? Today in America, there is a Martin Luther King Day to commemorate this great leader. Why? He was intentional. And because he was intentional, he maximized his mission. Your mission will only go as far as your intentionality. Let me repeat that again. Your mission will only go as far as your intentionality. I think about my friend Otieno here that does this program every Monday morning. What is he doing? He's maximizing his mission transformation by being intentional about what it is that is passionate about. So those are the three things that you gain when you become intentional as a leader. You gain momentum, you gain multiplication, and you maximize your mission as a leader. So what is this all about? What are we talking about when we talk about being intentional about as a leader? We are saying it's about your passion, not your position. It is about transformation, not titles. It is about purpose, not popularity. And it is about service, not entitlement. When you think about intention, think about passion. Think about how can I make my passion become a tool of making a difference? How can I make my passion, not how can I gain a new position? By the way, leaders that are intentional don't pursue positions. Positions pursue them. There are leaders that pursue positions, and there are leaders that are pursued by position. You know, when you think about somebody like Mother Teresa never pursued a position. What did she pursue? She pursued a passion. My question to you is, which passion has engulfed you so much that you're willing to go about it every day? You're willing to talk about it every day, so that it has engulfed you so much that you don't need a position. The more you pursue passion, the less you need position. And the more you pursue position, the more you prove that you've lost your passion. It is about transformation, not title. How many leaders now, you know, the other day there were these elections about people being nominated to run for political office. And when I looked about it, I was looking at how many people were running for MCA. And I was asking myself, how many people just want to be called Mheshimiwa and they are not about being passionate about transformation? Now, let me tell you something. Transformation is the engine of impact. The moment you commit yourself to making transformation wherever you are, being intentional about transformation, then you position yourself to be able to make an impact without needing titles. And then thirdly, it's about purpose, not popularity. In the day and age that we live in, everybody wants to be popular. Everybody wants to look for more followers on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, you know, on all these social media platforms. Let me tell you something. When you're busy about purpose, you are least concerned about popularity. And when you begin to be driven by popularity, it means you're not intentional about purpose. Then we have also said it's about service, not entitlement. Let me quickly finalize, and as I wrap our conversation up this morning, by talking about 5 things you must be intentional about as a leader, as an individual, if you're going to make maximum impact in your generation. Remember, we are saying intentional leadership is not about holding a position. It is about making an impact. Recently, we buried one of the fathers in this nation, His Excellency Mwai Kibaki. And one of the things that you find about this man, he did not talk much, but he did much. One of the things about intentional leaders is that they talk less and they do more. They talk less and they do more. Anytime you find yourself talking too much, query whether you are achieving results or you're trying to parrot your way to prominence without engineering results that will bring about transformation. So what are the 5 things that you need to be intentional about as a leader? Number 1, you must be intentional about authenticity. Authenticity. You must be intentional about being real and being consistent in what you do. Have you ever realized that no matter how good a leader is, when you begin to sense hypocrisy, when you begin to sense that they are phony, that they are not genuine, that they are not real, one of the things that you begin to do is you begin feeling tired about following that leader. The strength of a leader is in the authenticity of their life. You must be real. What does it mean to be authentic as a leader? You don't do things to prove a point. You don't do things to get applause. You do things because they are right. You do things because you are real as a leader. One of the greatest leaders in history is Jesus Christ. He lived 2,000 years ago, and until today, we are still following him. We are still passionate about him. Why are we passionate about him? He was an authentic leader. Every leader that must be a leader of worth must value authenticity more than popularity. Unfortunately, in the day and age we live in, we value popularity and we end up losing authenticity. I remember one of our political leaders one time was, the way our political leaders go out and they get swayed by the desire to impress crowds. And I remember he said, ukiona wao, weka taya. And the next time he was being interrogated by the media and being asked, what did you mean ukisema ukiona wao weka taya? And he began changing the narrative. Nilisema ukiona wao weka taya gari ipite. Look at the lack of authenticity there. When a leader lacks authenticity, when a leader is not deliberate about authenticity, he loses credibility. Number one thing as a leader, you must be deliberate about. Be deliberate about being real. Don't be out there to prove a point. Don't be out there to get marks. Don't be out there to get likes and follows. Be out there to be a real leader, because a real leader is a leader that is real. Authenticity. Number two thing that you need to be deliberate about as a leader is something I call appraisal. Appraisal. The good book tells us, judge yourself so that you will not be judged. What does that mean? You must appraise your life. You must assess your life as a leader. How are you doing as a leader? Whatever is not assessed cannot be improved. Don't wait to be assessed by people. Assess yourself. Judge yourself. Interrogate yourself. Ask yourself the hard questions. Ask yourself, is my attitude right? Ask yourself, is my conduct worthy of being a leader? A lot of us fail the test of intentional leadership because we don't appraise ourselves. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you sat down with a paper and a pen to ask yourself hard questions? How am I doing? How am I handling my weaknesses? How am I handling my appetites? How am I handling my appetite for food? How am I handling my appetite for popularity? Whatever you don't appraise, you cannot improve. Intentional leaders are not just deliberate about authenticity, they are deliberate about appraisal, self-appraisal. Judge yourself. Are you growing as you should? Are you developing yourself as you should? Because when you appraise yourself, then you'll be able to raise yourself. Number three thing that intentional leaders are deliberate about is their attitude. Now, one of the things that I tell people is that attitude is like a pregnancy. You can hide it for a while, but you cannot hide it for long. You know, when a lady gets pregnant, especially out of wedlock, and they are putting on those long dresses that hide their pregnancy, they can only hide it for so long. Your attitude as a leader will come out at one point or another. And it will come out when you're tired. It will come out when you're provoked. And it will come out when you're frustrated. Those are the three times you cannot hide your attitude as a leader. When you're provoked, when somebody angers you, when somebody, punches a hole on your ego, your attitude will come out. When you're frustrated, when things are not working as you thought they should, when things are not moving as you thought they should, your attitude will come out. Now, one thing you've got to be deliberate about is your attitude as a leader. Are you positive as a leader? Are you optimistic as a leader? And good leaders are leaders that have good attitudes when they're in the middle of difficult circumstances. One of the greatest leaders that you read about in the Bible is a guy called Joseph. And this guy went through everything that life can take you through as a leader. His brother sold him off to a foreign land where he didn't know anybody. He gets there and he's being framed by his leader's boss and he's being accused of wanting to sleep with the leader's boss. But one of the things that you consistently see in the life of Joseph, he never lost an attitude of greatness, no matter where he found himself. Your attitude is like a pregnancy. Your attitude is like an aroma. Wherever you go, your attitude is either a perfume or a stench. Have you ever gone to that area of Modhurwa area where there are those guys that pull those mkokotenis, and he passes by you, you feel a certain stench because the way you carry sweat is the way you carry your attitude. And guess what? Your attitude will either inspire people to follow you or cause people to run away from you. Can you imagine going, and I remember one time I was trying to board a matatu and it was raining. And when it's raining and everybody's going to board the matatu, everybody's fighting over there. And I remember, there was this lady that was just carrying those baskets from, the market, and she was sweating. And, I was imagining, the person who is fighting with her, and then the next thing, her armpit is on your nose, and, it spoils the whole of your day. And that's what attitude does for a leader. When your attitude is great, when you're deliberate and intentional about your attitude, you become a great leader. You become a great leader. So what are we saying? Intentional leaders are deliberate about, number one, their authenticity. Number two, their appraisal. Number three, their attitude. Number four, their actualization. Deliberate about making the most of your life. Did you know that it is said the most successful people only use 10% of their potential? I wonder how much of your potential you're using. I wonder how many ideas are rusting in the corners of your mind because you're not doing anything about them. Did you know that Miles Monroe said the richest place in the universe is the graveyard, because in the graveyard is buried tons of an actualized greatness, an actualized potential. Many people are not deliberate about growing themselves and making the most of themselves. One time, a lady sat down with their grandmother and they were asking their grandmother, what do you regret the most about? I know you've lived this many years. You've seen a lot in this life. What do you regret the most about? And with a tear in her eyes, the grandmother looked at that young lady and told her, I have many songs that came into my heart and into my mind, but I never sang them. I am dying with a song that was not sung because I didn't have the courage to actualize my greatness as a leader. What are we saying? You cannot maximize your potential by accident. Maximizing your potential as a leader is a deliberate process, is an intentional process. It is something, it is like climbing a ladder. You cannot climb a ladder when your hands are in your pocket. Can you imagine somebody climbing a ladder and their hands are in their pocket? The next thing is that they will be on the floor. They will be fellowshipping with the ground because of the force of gravity. What are we saying? Intentional leaders are deliberate about actualization. And there is nothing as frustrating as following a leader that has stopped growing. If you stop growing, you stop leading. If you stop making the most of yourself, people will stop being inspired by you. You inspire people by making the most of yourself, actualizing yourself. So what are we saying? Intentional leaders are deliberate about authenticity. They're deliberate about appraisal. They're deliberate about attitude. They're deliberate about actualization. And those are 4 areas you must be very intentional about if you're going to be a great leader. Remember, we are saying what? Leadership is about passion, not position. It is about transformation, not title. It is about servanthood, not holding a position. So finally, as we bring our conversation to a close, I want to give you 4 things you must guard against if you're going to be an intentional leader. These 4 things are what I call the 4 enemies of intentional leadership. And by the way, Anything great has an enemy. Even God has an enemy called the devil. You must put your enemies beneath you if you're going to keep rising. And these are 4 enemies of intentional leadership that I want you to watch out for, that I want you to be alert about, and that I want you to be very deliberate about, so that they don't conquer your greatness as a leader. Enemy number 1 is what I call pride. Pride. Wow. How many times have we talked about pride? Any leader that was great and became mediocre because they allowed the poison of pride to derail them from the path of greatness. By the way, pride always derails. Have you ever seen a train that was on a track and all of a sudden it was speeding down the mountain, it was speeding down the railway, and it derailed, it came out of the railway? What happened to it? Anytime the head of the train derails, those things that are attached to that head also derails. What are we saying? Anytime you allow pride to enter your heart, it derails your life as a leader. Even Jesus needed humility. He was the Son of God. But when you read Philippians chapter 2, the Bible says what? He humbled himself and he took the form of a servant. Humility keeps your leadership on track. Pride derails your leadership. Show me a proud leader, I will show you a leader headed for a crash. A leader headed for a crash. And by the way, I want you to understand this morning that nobody becomes humble by accident. Nobody ever wakes up and says, oh my God, I am miraculously humble. No, every leader that is humble becomes humble by being intentional about it. The freshness of your leadership is determined by the depth of your humility. Enemy number 1 of intentional leadership, pride. Pride. And pride shows up in many ways. You don't apologize when you wrong people. You don't admit when you've made a mistake. And these are things that I myself as a leader, I have struggled with. There are times my pride gets in the way and I know I'm supposed to apologize, but because I want to look like I'm in charge, I fail to apologize. And guess what? Anytime you fail to conquer your pride, mediocrity conquers you. Anytime you fail to conquer your pride, mediocrity conquers you. You lose your freshness as a leader. You lose your greatness as a leader. And I have seen my life getting into, wrong places because of pride. Times I should have apologized and I did not apologize. Times I should have admitted that I'm wrong. And especially for those of us who are married, most of your problems in marriage are pride problems, right? When pride is exalted, relationships are compromised. So what are we saying? The first enemy of intentional leadership is pride. The second enemy of intentional leadership is what I call pessimism. Pessimism. When you are negative about everything. Have you ever seen people, even when you bring them a good idea, they find something bad to say about it? I know you have that friend that you don't share information with because you know if I share it with so-and-so, if I talk about this idea to so-and-so, they will shoot it down. Great leaders are not pessimistic. They are critical without being critics. Right? If you are pessimistic, if you are negative about everything, the seed of leadership greatness cannot germinate until you are intentional about conquering pessimism. Pride, pessimism. How many times have we killed great initiatives because we were pessimistic about it? We were negative about it. We were not upbeat and enthusiastic about it. If you read the Bible, there's a story of a guy called Nehemiah. And when he begins building the wall of Jerusalem, there's a guy that comes and begins criticizing him. This guy is called Tobias. And he tells him, the wall that you're building is so weak that even a fox can bring it down. But you know what Nehemiah did? He continued building. By the way, builders are people that have allowed their optimism to be greater than they are listening to the opinions of their critics. your optimism must be greater. So number 2 enemy of intentional leadership is pessimism. Pride. Number 2, pessimism. Number 3, presumption. Presumption. When you assume things as a leader and you don't do your homework as a leader. One time, in my wife and I decided to start a business, and we wanted to do a pig business. And it's because we had heard, pig business is good and it gets some good money. And we were seeing how we will make quick money through this business. But guess what we did? We operated on presumption. We didn't do our homework well to know what are the issues in this area. What are the facts about this area? And guess what? That business did not last for long. Why? Presumption undermines leadership. Always do your homework as a leader. Don't ever show up without having done your homework. Can you imagine how it would sound like if I showed up today and I had not prepared for this presentation and I had not studied for it and I had not done my homework for it? If you fail to be a man that pursues facts, you cannot be fat, okay? It is the facts that you know that make you fat as a leader. It is the knowledge that you have that gives you an edge as a leader. The enemy number 3 of intentional leadership is the enemy called presumption. Presumption. I know you remember one time, one of our famous musicians called Bahati was invited for this big event in Kasarani. And he got into the stage and he started singing and he started dancing on the stage. And the next thing we know, this guy is going and getting the first lady from her seat and bringing her to dance on the dance floor, because he's imagining this thing is working the same way I do in the gigs with young people. What he didn't know is that he didn't know the protocol of greatness. And this guy almost got in trouble, because you don't do that with a president. You don't go and start dancing with the president like you are in another place somewhere. What are we saying? Presumption undermines leadership. Presumption kills your opportunities. Presumption aborts your possibilities. What are we saying? 4 enemies of intentional leadership. Number 1, pride. Number 2, pessimism. Number 3, presumption. And finally, number 4, and the last one, procrastination. Do you know the reason most of our dreams are not achieved? And I like the fact that this platform is called Live Your Dream. You cannot live your dream when you're living a procrastinating life. Procrastinators degrade their leadership. Have you ever followed a leader that was a procrastinator? They wanted to do this, and then the next thing, they push it to tomorrow, they push it to tomorrow. Anytime you fail to do what you should do when you should do it, you lose your leadership impact. If you're going to be intentional as a leader, you cannot be a procrastinator. By the way, the more you procrastinate, people begin seeing you as a fake leader. People begin seeing you as a leader that is not genuine, because intentional leaders are intentional about being proactive. They don't allow themselves to be victims of procrastination. What are we saying? There are 4 enemies of intentional leadership. What are they? Pride. When you become proud, you become a victim of leadership mediocrity. What is number 2? Number 2 is pessimism. When you become negative attitudes have never generated positive impact. You must uproot the weeds of negativity if you're going to be a great and an intentional leader. What is number 3? Number 3 is presumption. Always know your facts. There is nothing as frustrating as following a leader that is ignorant, a leader that is presumptuous, a leader that does not have the facts on the ground. Facts give you an edge in the journey of life. Then number 4, we've said procrastination. So what is the anatomy of a great leader? Or rather, let me give you these 2 questions before I finish my presentation today. Number 1, which area have you not been effective in as a leader? because of lack of intentionality. Which area? Just find one area where you need to be more intentional about and identify it and begin working on it. Which area have you not been effective in as a leader because you've not been intentional? For some of us, it's our communication skills. You've not been intentional about good communication. For some of us, it is failure to listen as a leader. You've not been intentional as a listener. For some of us, it is failure to innovate. You've not been creative and adaptive as a leader. For others, it is the ability to keep learning, to keep growing. What one area have you not been effective in as a leader because you lack intentionality? And then question number 2, what steps will you take to begin to grow as a leader in that area? If you don't take steps, you cannot make progress. If you are in a staircase and you don't lift your leg, you cannot move from one level to another. What are we saying? Intentionality is not about the desires you have. It is about the steps you take. So finally, as we bring our conversation to a close, I want to tell you the anatomy of an intentional leader. And this is from a poem I read many years ago and I've never forgotten. Somebody said, when the world sits down, stand up. When the world stands up, stand out. When the world stands out, be outstanding. And when the world is outstanding, be the standard. In other words, be intentional about always being ahead of your game as a leader, ahead of the pack as a leader. And when you do that, your intentionality is your only security against irrelevance. I want to believe that my sharing has added value to you and it has made an impact in your life. And finally, I've authored a few resources that I want to recommend for you that will inspire you towards being authentic. I have authored a book called The Excellence Code. I've authored a book for men called Towards Authentic Manhood. I've authored a book for husbands called The Hubby's Hub. I have authored a book called The Quest for Authentic Character. I'm sure you can reach out to our host and they'll be able to just facilitate and communicate with me for anybody that may want a copy, and that will be a great resource for you. I want to believe that this has added value for you, and I want to just take this back to our host that has so graciously allowed me the opportunity to be on this platform and to be of value to you. But God bless you, God keep you, and be an intentional leader so that you can be a leader of value and a leader of worth. So thank you so much. Back to you, my host.
Thank you very much. I wish we had 2 hours or 3 hours, because I feel like there will be too many questions. There is no time for it. And there will be a lot of interest in contributing. Maybe you will need to come back here another time. We will discuss that. You can put your number there. You can put your contact so people can reach you. And I also know that you've not told them about your course, the excellence or excellency, yeah, which is very good. I love everything you've shared. I relate with them. If we are authentic, we will be deliberate. There is something we will stand for. We will know, and if we stand for something, we will be ready to commit to it, to even die for it. Yes, we'll be strategic, we'll be proactive. You've also talked about where there is no strategy, there is tragedy. You see, tragedy will rule. And you've talked about something that is very important for me usually. It's called momentum. When we lose momentum, everything else goes haywire. You see, my friend Donald Trump calls it in his book, Think Big, the big MO, the big mo. And he relates a very fantastic story about some businessman who lost momentum and lost everything. And even how he himself lost momentum. Multiplicity and mission. And then now you've crowned it all with the 4 things. Yeah, 4 things to be intentional about: authenticity, appraisal, attitude. I love those examples about attitude, actualization. And then these final 4, the peace. Yeah, pride, presumption, procrastination, pessimism. Very beautiful. I will open the floor for some comments, people with comments, you can raise up your hand and get on, or you can at this moment, I think it would be good to say it, because whatever is written is already written, and they could be a lot of them. Reading them might be a trouble. Yes, any comments from the floor?
Hello.
Yes, Daktari, go ahead.
Thank you, Boniface, for that excellent presentation. I'm actually blown away, because everything that I've ever learned on leadership has been summarized here. I've always wondered how to summarize everything that I've ever learned. So this has really, really been amazing. I would like you to please repeat what you said at the very end, when the world sits down, that sentence, please.
Okay, thank you, Eda, for those wonderful, kind words. I appreciate that. But let me repeat them again. When the world sits down, stand up, right? When the world stands up, stand out. When the world stands out, be outstanding. And when the world is outstanding, be the standard. Let me take it again. When the world sits down, stand up. When the world stands up, stand out. When the world stands out, be outstanding. And when the world is outstanding, be the standard. In other words, be ahead of the pack always. Leadership is active engagement, not passive position holding. I hope you've got it, Eda.
Yes, thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Great. Boniface just mentioned about the excellency thing.
All right. So a friend of mine and myself, actually one of my mentors and myself do run a program called the Excellency Master Course. And the Excellency Master Course is basically about challenging you and inspiring you to live to your highest standard of life. And one of our philosophies is the fact that if you don't have standards, you will end up being substandard. And when you end up being substandard, you are avoided. You are a person that is a stench of mediocrity to your generation. And so the purpose of that course is basically to help you to harness your ability to be the most excellent you can be, because we feel that a life that is not lived for excellence is a wasted life. And a life that is not lived with high standards is a life that has not been optimized and maximized to its maximum potential. So you can reach out to me. I've given my email on chat. So you're welcome to be able to join, to just drop me an email. You can follow me on online. I've given you my details as well. And I think I need to type my phone number as well for those who may want to reach me on WhatsApp, so that you can reach me there. I've typed it there on chat. So you can reach out and then we can give you more info on that. Yes.
Thank you very much. And it's a good cause. I was invited there by one of us called Olewe here, and I was able to hear what they are doing. It's a beautiful one for people who would like to pursue excellency. Just reach him out. And thank you very much. Any other comment? Any other comment or a question? For people who are here for the first time, we do this every Monday using the same link. Every Monday starting 7:15 to 8:15, only that we start the meeting earlier by 7 so that we get to know each other. So if you are interested, we even have a WhatsApp group for this. You can always get in touch with me. My name is Otieno Paul Peter, and my number is put there. you can reach me. We will be able to chat, and we can add you to our WhatsApp group, where we continue to share things every other day. And any other idea that comes into mind, we put it there, people can share, because our intention is purely personal development. I love personal development, and when Boniface started, he started by asking, what are you passionate about? I'm passionate about building people. Yes, capacity building, personal development. That is all you will find in me everywhere I am. And so even our organization, Live Your Dream, is about equipping and inspiring people to live their dream. And we share simple, practicable skills, not theories, but things that you can put into action and help you to grow in your pursuit for your dream, being authentic, being somebody who can be happy with your life, not taking them to the grave and then regretting. Yes. So we are very much blessed to have Boniface this morning, and I know we will continue to have him. This is just the beginning. This is not the end. This is the beginning of the beginning. Thanks.